people say they were accepting, but when you went into that Ram locker room and you looked at people in body language, Michael, did you feel like you were accepted?
You know, I'm not gonna lie, it was tough. I got some like, oh, here comes the distraction, you know, how we're going to deal with it. They didn't know me. I only had a couple of teammates. Tim Barnes was a former Tiger, TJ Moe, and EJ Gaines. They were former Tigers as well. So I had them to pretty much tell the others that, hey, he's cool, just got to get to know him. Like, you know, so it was tough. That during OTAs it was really tough until I started to prove myself that I'm one of the guys. That is when everything changed. I felt more accepting. Guys invited me out to dinners, to their homes, and with their families. Right. I really felt that. I really thought that I was going to be a part of that organization. I really do wish I was a part of it. But it was tough going to that loaded defensive line.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We said at the time that you could have picked a better team to get drafted by. When you look at it now, you felt, I'm going to make this public because people are going to find out, and I want to control it. I want to control it, which I get. Do you think, let's say you don't announce it, do you think you make the Rams?
No, I don't think I'll make the Rams. I think I will be another team. I think it was kind of going to the Rams. It's being in Missouri. The owner is a former alumni as well, and it's in the state where I played football at. I think if I had my way, I really do wish I went undrafted. I could actually went to a team who really need pass rush and needed a defensive end who can pass rush the quarterback. But the Rams, even though I learned a lot from Chris Long and Quinn, I think that I could have done better and be on an active roster right now if I went to a different team.
Now, I'm not normally someone to report anything that was being reported by Glenn Beck, but this article here on The Blaze and also this interview you saw talks about how Michael Sam was revisiting what's been happening to him over the past few years, and when he, I guess so-called, came out as the first openly homosexual professional NFL player, we all saw the coverage that he got, and he talks about how he was basically used by the LGBTQ plus agenda group, the mafia, the Gestapo, and when he was no longer in the NFL and when he fell on hard times, they had no need for him. He talks about how he was going through depression and he got on drugs and cocaine and alcohol. He was abusing substances. He hit rock bottom. Eventually he went into rehab. He got his life together, which, I'm glad for that. I mean, I hope he would go to an additional rehab and get his life together in other ways spiritually, but only time will tell about that. But at least I'm glad that the substance abuse issues, he fixed that. Now, this just goes to show you that it's all about an agenda with the homosexual Gestapo. They don't care about the people. They don't care about people's true lives or their personal stories. They just care about the narrative and the agenda and all the backing that they get from George Soros and from others. This is just a pervasive destruction of traditional and biblical society to push their agenda, and especially in our community, to take away true masculinity and the true role of the man as man was created by the Most High. Now, I wasn't doing YouTube at the time, but when this whole thing, when Michael Sam came out, I knew it was a publicity stunt. I knew it was trying to take moment and opportunity, and Oprah was right there with her network to try to soak up all the attention. And where's all those people now? Where's the LGBTQ now? Where's George Soros now when you need him? Where's the left wing agenda when he needed them? Where was Oprah when he needed her. She didn't do anything for Michael Sam. All the money that Oprah had, did she help him with rehab? Did she help him with his financial issues? Did she help him when he fell on hard times? He also talked about how he's trying to reconcile with his family again. Another thing, that infamous, the disgusting kissing on the mouth of that mayonnaise lover that he had. Where's that little guy? Did he hang around? So we know this is an agenda. We know this is a publicity stunt, and we know what they're trying to do. Okay, I didn't watch Michael Sam in college all of the years, so I can't, from a scouting standpoint, I can't speak to his talent on that level. But I looked at a number of the scouting reports when he was being drafted at the time, and the guy is actually more of like even for a prototypical, what most NFL scouts would want a prototypical, let's say 4-3 defensive linebacker to be. He, even for a 4-3 linebacker, inside or outside, he was undersized, and even a either like a defensive end, especially a 4-3 defensive end, or even a 3-4 defensive alignment outside linebacker, pass rusher. Forget about the size. He didn't have the athleticism. He didn't have the He didn't have the fluidity. He didn't have the agility. He didn't have the speed. He didn't have the pure raw athleticism. I mean, he had a good career in college, but when you're talking about the NFL, this is even better than the top 1%. The standard is all the more higher. And many of the scouts who had watched the film and watched the tape, and he played 4 years, I believe, at Missouri, the people who had watched his career were saying that he was probably maybe like a lower 4th round draft pick all the way to undrafted free agent. Okay, now if you know anything about the draft and the scouting process, most teams, when you put together your scouting board, there's really not that much of a difference from someone who's like a 4th rounder, bottom level 4th rounder, maybe like a compensatory level draft pick player, to 7th round and undrafted rookie free agent. There's really not that much of a difference. That's what, from maybe spot, maybe like from spot 200 or so to the bottom of the draft to being undrafted. There's really not that much of a difference. And depending upon the scouts, the evaluators, everything that they're looking at in the evaluation process, how you did in an interview, how you did on the aptitude test, the measurables, the tangibles, as well as the intangibles and the immeasurables that they look at as far as a prospect as a whole. Depending on what each team likes, what each scout or coach likes, and just the negotiation that needs to take place in the war room prior to draft day when you're putting your board together, as well as, because if you do a good job putting your board together, then you know what to do on draft day. The only thing on draft day is who gets selected where and who's available, and then you just go to your board and you trust your board. I mean, there's going to be a discussion about who's the best player available, but if you have a system in place, if you have your board in place, if you've done all that work beforehand, and if you trust the process, trust the system, trust the board that you have in place and your scouts, it should be a lot easier on draft day regardless of what happens. So yes, what each team likes and what each team maybe needs at the time, although I would go more so for value or talent over need when it comes to drafting players and looking at prospects, it's going to be a little different. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder, okay? But you're talking about a guy who was like 6'1", 240, 245 pounds, okay? I know to a lot of people that may sound pretty big for the average guy, but NFL, linebacker, pass rusher, and when you don't have great speed or quickness, you don't have great fluidity or instincts or athleticism or anything like that. When you're just a mediocre athlete at best on the NFL level, that's nothing special. Okay, you can get guys like that all the time. And with the whole coming out of the closet thing, that was a big distraction. And most NFL teams, and this isn't being quote unquote so-called homophobic, most NFL teams would not want to deal with the distraction of a guy who probably should have been, I think he was drafted in the 7th round, but a guy who maybe shouldn't even have been drafted by many people's estimation. And even if he was drafted by a guy who was going to struggle to make any roster, let alone the defensive line that the St. Louis Rams had at the time, and even the defense that the Rams, well, now they're the Los Angeles Rams, the defense and the defensive line that the Rams have right now, okay? And for the people who understood football, like myself, for people who understood sports, for the people who weren't approaching this from the social justice warrior, homosexual Gestapo agenda, we understood this, okay? And based upon the scouting report, my prognosis was not only wouldn't I have not drafted this guy, I probably wouldn't even bring him into my locker room because it's not worth it. You know, it would, chances are when you're weighing the odds, it would have been more of a distraction more than anything, and the likelihood, the statistic possibility that he would have turned out to been just a solid contributing player, role player, rotation player that you could have gotten on the cheap, plus with all the media coverage and the agenda and the social justice warriors and the distraction, it just wasn't worth it. I want to be about football. I want to be about winning. I want to be about, let's be on this one goal as a team, and all these other distractions, particularly something like this, it's just not worth it, okay? I mean, you see the Rams, even though they didn't do well, they made it to a Super Bowl. You don't need to be worried about this. You need to be worried about winning a Super Bowl, because that's your goal as an organization. And all these people who inserted themselves into this when they normally would not have been commenting about sports were just trying to soak up the attention and being opportunist and trying to push this pervasive agenda to change traditional norms and standards and what is sound biblical doctrine as far as how things should be done and the way our lives should be lived, okay? And while I'm happy he's turned his life around to a certain extent, in another regard, I don't have that much sympathy for him, because being a 4-year senior in that situation, I would think that he should have maybe known better. You know, I get it, the attention and the opportunity, but especially if you say that you're all about football, you should have known what these other people coming along were all about. And I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done any Oprah interviews. I wouldn't have allowed the Oprah network to be over at the house and that kiss and the cake and everything. I wouldn't have allowed any of that extra attention. I would have just been a regular, well, I wouldn't be coming out of the closet anyway, because there's nothing for me to reveal. But it's like, I have something to tell you. I'm a heterosexual male who likes women. I'm coming out as a heterosexual male. I mean, that, you know, that's not really a story that definitely they wouldn't or anyone else really wants to broadcast. That's the norm. But my advice to him was that he should have just kept his mouth shut, okay, and not done all the extra stuff. Now, there's a report that a reporter was going to tell his secret So to get in front of the breaking story, he decided to come out. That way his teammates at Missouri at the time, as well as all of the other individuals in the scouting process and the drafting process as far as the NFL, would hear it from him instead of hearing about it from a reporter. That's the narrative. I don't know if I really believe that, but that's the narrative that we got, okay? So if a reporter was going to out him, I mean, I guess there's really nothing you could do about that. But if that wasn't the truth, and if that's not the reality of the situation, you should have just kept your mouth shut, dude. You should have just kept it a secret, because nobody was asking. Nobody cares. No one was concerned about this. The only reason that this got all the media attention and the publicity it did was because of the agenda and because of the social justice warrior politics, you know, of the left, okay? That's what this was all about. And all of these people who are on that side, who say they care so much about these issues and the people, particularly the ones who are running these organizations or benefiting the most from these organizations, how much do you really care about the people and these issues when this is someone who's supposed to be on your team and they fall on hard times, you know, and you were there for them to get all the media attention and to say, oh, this was such a historic moment. This is going to change modern sports. This is going to change every locker room in pro sports. But then when a guy hits rock bottom of the barrel, he falls on hard times, no one else is to be found, there's no coverage, there's no attention, there's no money coming in, there's no publicity, there's no nothing. And all these people who are getting involved in a territory that's really not their wheelhouse, they were nowhere to be found, you know. And Mr. Michael Sam, I'm sorry, but you played yourself and you allowed these people to use you. I mean, you thought that they cared about you. They don't care about you. Particularly for the Japhetic Gomerites that we have, even the ones who claim a certain ideology, you know, the Judaizers. We know they don't care about our community, and when I say community, I mean ADOS community, ADOS community, okay? You're a brother. Even if you have this issue when it comes to sexuality, you're still a brother, okay? And you come from the community, I believe, of ADOS, okay? They don't care about us. They don't care about brothers, you know, definitely not straight brothers, and not even you sodomite brothers. And they don't care about the ADOS community, and they don't care about African people in general, okay? They only care about their side, and they were just using you. You were just a pawn, okay? So for all of the rest of these brothers and sisters who, you know, you want to identify with that rainbow community, you know, you might think you have friends, you might think you have allies, but just like we've seen in the past historically, particularly in this country, just like the feminist movement and Me Too and Time's Up, just like what happened with civil rights, just like with what they're doing with immigration, just like all these other things, you're just adding to their numbers, okay? They're padding their stats. That's all they're doing. They don't care about you. All you are is just a tally mark. And you shouldn't allow yourselves... Sorry about that. I was almost finished anyway. You shouldn't allow yourselves to be used. That's for the women. That's for the alternative sexuality. That's for all of us, okay? You shouldn't allow yourselves to be used by these people because they don't care about you. They just care about what they can get out of the situation. They're opportunists.